Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into another video. I am so sorry to the one subscriber I have for not posting in like 2 or 3 weeks. I promise I'll start posting every week again, and I will be doing double post hopefully. And if you're here and you're not subscribed, then subscribe. What are you doing? Anyways, I also wanted to let you guys know that there's a Discord server that you can join, a link in the description below. And I'll be there, and some other people will be there that will be able to help you. Currently, it's at 35 members, and we're trying to grow. So yeah. Anyways, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to save data through JSON using something called using a library called Newtonsoft. It's not super easy to explain right now, but it'll become more clear as we start coding. So let's just hop right into it. All right, now that we got Visual Studio open, I'm just gonna go straight away, and I'm just gonna go over to Project, Add Class, and I'm just gonna create a class where we're gonna manage all this data. All the JSON data. And I'm just gonna go ahead and call it config loader and go ahead and add it. Give it a second to create the class. Hopefully it doesn't take an eternity. All right. Looks good. All right. So what am I gonna do in here? Well, first I'm just gonna go ahead and create a public static string token, and then just get and private set that. And then we'll also set it to an empty string. And basically what this is going to do, it's just going to be the value inside of the config loader that's going to hold the token. It's very simple. I mean, the name is kind of self-explanatory. So, yeah. And then I'm just going to do another one for the prefix because every bot needs a prefix for its commands, and we'll be getting into commands in probably the next video, I think. I'm not quite sure, haven't planned that far ahead yet. And then the final thing I'm going to declare up here is a public static string path. And this will just be the path to the file that holds the data because we want to be able to modify it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start by creating a public static void load. What this is going to do, this is going to be called at the beginning of our program. And when this is called, we're just going to want to load up the data. And what are we going to want to do when we load up the data? Well, first, when we load up the program, we want to get the directory. Oh, and one thing I should mention, you're going to want to import system.io because you aren't going to be able to use get directory without it. So what are we going to do? We're going to go ahead and we're going to do path is equal to directory.get current directory. So that gets the current file that we're in. And then we're just going to give the file a name. So you can name it whatever you'd like. And basically how you can do that is you're just going to do that, saying that it's inside of this folder. And then the end of the file name has to end in .json because it's a JSON file. And then right off the bat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out this path. And I'm just going to do that by saying path and then adding on the actual path to the end. And this will just print out the path so we can know exactly where we can find our JSON file. And then there's another issue because at this point, we don't actually know if the file has been created yet. We want to make sure that once the program is started, we want to make sure that if there isn't a JSON file yet, we want to make sure that we do check if it exists, and if it doesn't, then we want to create it. How are we going to do that? Very simple. Once again, we'll be using something from system.io, and we'll be doing if file.exist, and then we'll plug in a path. And we've created that path inside of this variable, as you can see here, so we are able to check if that file actually exists. So what this does here is, if the file does not exist, it checks the path from there. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna just print to the console that the config file does not exist. Oh geez, I spelled that wrong. Does not exist. And then we're gonna say we're creating the config. All right, great. And how are we going to go about that? I'm not going to get into that quite yet because we haven't actually created a way to manage this JSON data. So for here, what we're going to do, we're just going to do to do and create a new empty JSON file and save to path. Okay, great. So now that we've got this, this done, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a couple of different functions, and these functions are just gonna consist of how we save the data and how we load the data. Actually, wait. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the structure of classes inside of that JSON file. So how this is going to work is we're just going to be creating a couple of classes down here, and what these are they're going to be they're going to be data classes, meaning they're just going to store data, and these classes are going to be exactly how we save all the data that we need. So I'm just going to start by creating these, and just give me a second here so that I can type this out, and then I'll explain to you how it works in just a moment. Sorry, I just made a mistake. We just want the public string token, and we want the public string prefix, just like we had at the top. All right, and then inside the JSON wrapper, we're going to want to create a public data, and then call it data, and then set it to a new data. All right, how does this work? Well, this is a JSON wrapper right here. So this is the actual data class that we'll be saving. And how it works is like, what we're going to be doing is we're going to serialize this into a string. And when we serialize it into a string, we're going to put it inside of the config.json file. So basically, what this is doing is, this is a class, and inside of this class, it holds data, and then inside of data, it holds a token and a prefix. And it's just standard to create a wrapper for your data, really. I mean, I've always done it. I'm not sure exactly where I pick it up, but I'm pretty sure it's a standard thing. And then the last thing that you're going to want is you're going to want to add an attribute to here called system.serializable. And this just tells the program that we can serialize this into a string. All right, fantastic. So that's all we need for the data structure. Now in here, we're going to need two functions, as I was saying earlier, and we're going to call this a public static void save data. And this will just be the function that saves data. And then we're going to do JSON wrapper. So it's going to take in a wrapper, a JSON wrapper, and then we're going to save that wrapper to the file path. And I'll get to that in just a moment, because first, what I want to do is I want to create a public static void load data. Okay. So now that we've got this all together, actually, I don't want to create a void. We actually want to have a return value for this one. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to return the wrapper. So when we call this function, it's going to return the wrapper, and it's going to make more sense once I actually show you how it works. But let's just plow on. So right now it's just giving me an error because every method with a return, or I guess with a type, has to have a return inside of it. So I'm just gonna start working on this one so I can get rid of this stupid little red squiggly line. Drives me crazy. Actually, no. Sorry, I'm very indecisive today. I'm gonna start with the save data actually. And just don't worry about this error for now. Let's just get into this. So how are we gonna save the data? Well, as I was mentioning earlier, we're gonna want to first turn it into a string. How do we do that? Well, first, we're going to need to import newtonsoft.json so that we have the appropriate methods to actually serialize the data. So how are we going to convert this data class into a string? Well, Newtonsoft actually has a very nice command or method for this. Sorry, I'm all over the place today, called Serialize Object. And what we're going to do is we're just going to serialize the wrapper, and it's going to turn it into a string called content. And from here, it's really, really simple. We just do file.writeAllText, and then we're going to input a path and then the content. So this is another part of system.io. We just write the text to this path with this string. So this is the string that we're writing to this path. And then I'm just going to end this off by adding if wrapper.data.prefix is not equal to prefix, then prefix is equal to wrapper, oh my gosh, to wrapper.data.prefix. And this is not super readable, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, so I'm just gonna do this. So what this is doing, I just want you to think about this for a second. Just analyze it. What we're doing is we've got a JSON wrapper that's being inputted here. And then we're grabbing the wrapper, and then we're checking if wrapper.data.prefix is not equal to prefix. Scroll down here, wrapper.data.prefix. So whenever we save the data, we want to make sure if the prefix changes, we want to make sure that we save it into this file so that any other file that tries to access this variable right here updates. So the prefix actually changes. And the reason why we don't do this with the token as well is because token can't change mid-program. So, you know, it's not a big deal. Anyways, we've got this working. This is fantastic. This is actually all we need for the save data. And the load data is also super simple. All we need to do, well, it works along the same lines. But I'm just gonna walk you through it, of course. So yeah, you understand fully how JSON or how this uh, Newtonsoft works. Um, and here we go. So we're gonna start by checking if the file exists. All right, and this is just in case the file doesn't actually exist. We don't want it to throw an error. So we're just checking if it exists or not. And if it doesn't exist, then we just return null. We forget about it, right? And then down here, if it does actually exist, then we're going to once again create a content string. And we're going to actually set it this time to file.readAllText and then path. And as you can probably guess, what this actually does is it reads all the text from a file from the path inputted here, and then it sets it to content. And then to actually turn it back into the JSON wrapper class, because that's our return value, to actually turn it back, we're going to need to serialize that string back into a data class. How we do that is very simple. We just do JSON convert.deserialize object, and then we input what object we want to deserialize it into, and then we want to input the string into that as well. And then this doesn't complete it yet because we haven't actually returned this value. So now that we've deserialized the object, we actually want to return it so that we can use it. And just like that, we're all done with our config loader, except for this top part here, which I'm going to explain right now. So to do, create a new empty JSON file and save to the path. Okay. And I didn't write that properly, but that's okay. So what are we going to want to do when the file doesn't exist? Well, we're going to want to create a new one with empty tokens and prefixes so that we can set it. How I'm going to do that is very simple, actually. I'm just going to do save data JSON wrapper new JSON wrapper. Save data new JSON wrapper. Oh my. And this just works really simply. Basically, it just creates a new empty one with like an empty token, empty prefix, and then a new data class. And it just saves the data. So it's going to be empty, and it's going to have these values for these variables, but that's okay because we have to input it ourselves, so it doesn't really matter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to return here because down here we're going to add some additional code if the file does actually exist. And what we're going to do is we're going to do JSON wrapper equal oh man, JSON wrapper and then the name wrapper load data. And because we have the return value of JSON wrapper down here, we always return a JSON wrapper. So we're setting wrapper to load data, which is in fact actually a JSON wrapper when you look into it. And then what we're going to do is we're simply going to set token to wrapper.data.prefix, and then we're going to set prefix to wrapper.data.prefix. And I just noticed I made a little stupid bug here. That's all right. And yeah, that's all we really need for this class now. We can head back to bot.cs here, or yeah, bot.cs here, and we can start implementing this into our actual program. All right, so if we remember back to how we actually load the data in the config loader, or how we actually start the processes in the config loader, we actually have this public static void load function. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually just call this at the beginning of the program. And we're just gonna do that by doing config loader dot load. And basically what this is going to do is it's just going to call this function this method that we created here. And yeah, so we're just going to run through the program, create the files, read the files, whatever. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is we want to make sure that the the prefixes, the prefixes and the oh my gosh, and the token are actually set, because we can't start the program if we don't have a prefix, and we can't start the program if we don't have a token. Obviously, that one's very, very obvious. So we're just going to want to first check if they exist, and we're just going to do that by doing this. And here we're just checking if the config loader.prefix equals an empty string, or, and that's what this symbol means, or if the config loader dot prefix dot equals is equal to an empty string as well. What are we going to want to do if that happens? We're just going to want to write something to the console to let you know that it's not working. And I'm just going to say token and or prefix is not set in config dot json. Okay. Um, and that's great. And we don't want to continue with the program if we don't have a prefix or a token. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for this part. And then the next thing we're going to want to do, we can just completely wipe this out here because we're going to be now accessing it from the config loader. And at this point, we're actually completely done. Everything should work because we've loaded the config loader in here and we're setting the tokens and prefixes here. So we actually have a variable to hold this data inside of the config loader, and we don't need to have one inside of bot.cs. And we also check if that prefix and if that oh my goodness, I just noticed I made another mistake. We actually want to check if the token. Wow, how did I'm just full of mistakes here today. But yeah, but we check if the prefix or the token are empty already, so we don't need to worry about that either. This is going to cause a slight error down here because uh, there's no longer that token variable. And why, there we go. And now that there's no longer that token variable, so we can now access the token variable from config loader.cs. All right. Fantastic. So this all works, and we don't have to worry about the prefix for now because we haven't made any commands yet. So it's not really important now, but you're going to want to understand how that works for now. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to give my program a run and we can take a look at how this works. All right, so let's take a look at the console, and we actually have an expected output here. If you just take a look here, config does not exist, creating config file. And then token and or prefix is not set in the config.json. So what really happened here? Well, let's take a look in here. The file doesn't exist, right? This is the first time we've run the program, so the file has never been created before. So we actually create it as it says right here, and as we print right here. Um, and then down here it says token and or prefix is not set in config.json. Well, now that we've created the file, we haven't actually set the token in there. So we're gonna have to go ahead and do that. And here we have the path. I think this is the path, right? Wait, why didn't it print the path? Did I? Oh, geez, I completely missed that. All right, here we go. Here's the path. And we're just gonna go to the file explorer. We're gonna go to this path, and you'll see right here we have the JSON file. We can open this up, and there you go. And this is how the structure really works. You can see here's the data class, and then inside the data class here's a token and here's a prefix. Very cool stuff, very simple, but it works well to save your data, and it will certainly be useful in other programs. So this is certainly a skill that you want to remember. Anyways, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go through the process of inputting the token But if you don't want to go through that process again, you can just probably skip ahead a little bit, or you can just leave now because it should all work and you can just input your prefix and your token in here. Anyways, so I'm going to go to the developer portal. And then now that I'm in the developer portal, I'm going to go to my applications. Then here's my tutorial bot. And then we're going to want to grab the token. And let's see if I can remember. I think it was in bots, actually. All right. So I'm going to grab and copy the token, and I'm just going to paste it in here. And then for the prefix, I'm just going to put an exclamation point. Once again, it doesn't matter, but we have to set it because in our program, we actually check if it's set or not. And I also want to remind you guys, please, 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 do not share your token with anybody. I'm just sharing it here, and I'm going to just regenerate it later. So yeah, but please don't share your token. Um, anyways, yeah, because if you share your token, anybody can just start up your bot and grief all the servers that you're in. So you really don't want to share that. Anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and save that file. Fantastic. And we're going to go back in here, close everything. Actually, I'll minimize that. And then we'll run the console app. And now, this should actually work perfectly. Unless I made some stupid mistake, which is not uncommon. And there you go. And there's my Discord server once again. If you'd like to join, please do. And I'm just gonna open up the Discord server and make sure it all worked. All right, now that I got my Discord open, you can see I'm inside the game dev community, which is my server once again. So if you want to join, invite link in description. And as you can see in the online members, you can see tutorial bot is actually online. So everything worked well, and I'll actually give this guy the bot role. And yeah, and I will be I will be showing you guys how commands work in another Discord server because I kind of realize that that this could cause problems. That running commands in here could cause problems at some point. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I promise I'll be posting more, and I just want to get back on that grind. So, I'll see you guys in the next episode, and I'm just gonna go ahead and stop this guy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much.